Hi, this is David McCann for WebTNG. In this video, I'm looking at Voxel. Voxel is a WordPress theme that comes with a number of advanced features. Before beginning research for this video, that's all I knew about Voxel. So I've installed Voxel, I've read the docs, I've played around with it. So in this video, what I want to do is share with you Voxel's features, what Voxel brings to the table. So this isn't a how-to video. We're not going to actually build something. We'll do an installation of Voxel. We'll look at the settings. We'll install one of the starter sites that Voxel offers so we can look a little deeper about how you would use Voxel. After our walkthrough, then we'll have some discussion where we'll talk about the pros and cons. This is the Voxel website here. Here you see the list of starter sites that Voxel comes with. There's a directory, a stays, kind of an Airbnb type functionality, community, e-commerce, gaming, news site, car rental, and a doctor, search for doctor directory. This is the pricing. There are docs. The docs are pretty good, pretty extensive. They aren't how-to docs. They're more reference to explain what the different features are. Voxel also has a YouTube channel, and there they have some videos that do walkthroughs. I have a testing site here. This is a 2025 theme. It's basically a new site. I have WP Vivid installed, which I use to refresh the site between testing cycles. And as I said, here's a 2025 theme. So let's install Voxel. Okay, so I've downloaded it, and we click install, and we'll activate it. Then we go into this onboarding option here. They give us the minimum specs we need to get started. So let's start the setup. And you pick whether it's production or staging, development. Okay, and now we have the option to install one of those starter sites. But to start out, I'm going to install a blank site so, we can see what the starter site adds. And we're done. We can go to the home page. It really is a blank install. And here we are at the dashboard. Okay, if we go and look at the plugins, we'll see that it installed Elementor, the free version of Elementor. You can use the pro version of Elementor or Elementor add-ons if you want to, but that's not required. There's been some talk that they might one day support other builders or Gutenberg, but right now I think they're focusing more on rounding out the feature set. So we see here that there are several areas in the admin. There's this voxel area, there's a structure area, a design area. We have product type, timeline, which are these here, and membership, which is this one here, which is required. So you're always going to have that installed and set up. All of these screens are this dark gray on gray. That tells you you're on a Voxel settings page. The regular admin is what you're used to. When we're here in these areas, there are a ton of settings. We're not going to go through all of them. I just want to give you a flavor of the types of settings there are and the main kind of feature groups. You have your settings for setting up Stripe, for your map providers, for notifications, for direct messages. And yes, Voxel comes with chat functionality. There's stats for analytics. We'll come back and look at that when we install a starter site so you can kind of see what that is. There's, setting up who gets email notifications, creating nav menus. This is social share buttons that you can configure. Voxel has front-end filters. They create indexes for those front-end filters, so they want to know what kind of database you have. Okay, this is this library. These are some post types that they've pre-designed, pre-configured that you can install. App events. So you see their orders, membership, timeline, and direct messages. And these are groups of kind of notification settings. So like what happens when a new order is placed, send an in-app notification, send an email notification, notify the vendor, notify admin, or have a custom PHP handler for that event. And that is the set of settings or options for each of these. When an order is declined, when the vendor marks something is shipped, okay, under membership, when a new user registered, on the timeline, when a post is liked, or a post is quoted, or there's a comment, or a comment is liked, okay, or there's a mention. These timelines are feeds. They're like a wall on Facebook, so you can see the kind of interactions that you would expect there. And again, they all have the same set of settings there, and same for direct messages. Okay, then there's the onboarding menu. You can go through that again. Structure, this is for creating and managing post types and taxonomies. We'll come back to that when we install a starter site so you can see the options for some. They do give you the option to take over some of the existing WordPress core ones and manage those with Voxel. You have the ability to create custom post types and custom fields and taxonomies. Design, you can design login and registration pages. You can create membership plans. You can set up your orders page and cart and the Stripe account page, templates for posts on the feed. Okay, style kits are kind of groups of UI elements that you can style together. Okay, and when you go in to create any of these, you're taken into Elementor. The template is named and defined, and you lay out and design in Elementor. You can create your header and footer, and then you have your design for displaying taxonomies. There are product types and timelines. Remember, because those are turned on, you can create a product type. In the timeline, this is where you can see posts and likes and things like that. You can go in and set up who the feeds are visible for and how many show per page, and enable reposts and quotes and statuses and replies and moderation options and follower options. And then here is where you create your membership plans. Those are kind of the big sections here. Let's look at some of those a little more detail by going into the onboarding back here, and let's install one of the demo sites that they have. We'll just install the business directory and import that demo. It's going to copy a lot of images over and stuff. It'll take a couple minutes, so I'll pause the video and we'll resume when we get close to the end. All right, it's just finishing up now, and we can go to the home page and take a look there. This is the home page for the business directory. You can do a faceted search here. For example, you can look at the restaurants and search, right? So it shows you, your directory that way. And here is a carousel with different types of places. Okay, there are events here. Looks like an image failed to import there. All right, so that gives you an idea of the kind of demo site from the front end. If we go to the back end and look here, the statistics I wanted to show you. See, now that we have posts and collections and profiles and places and events that have been created in this demo site, and these are here. You see, here's the places, here are the events. If we go under users, there's, Voxel user profile and collections there. Okay, now that those have been created, you can track visits and activity related to them in the analytics section here. You can turn that on. There's IP geolocation options as well. If we go to structure, here are the post types that Voxel created. Let's go into one here. We see some things here are like you would expect in the UI when you create a custom post type, like the single name, plural name, and the slug. And you have permalinks and setting up the archive page. But there is expiration rules. There's the option to mark an item as containing personal data. Like for GDPR, you're supposed to be able to delete someone's personal data if they request it or do an export of it. So you can go into the custom post type and you can mark that as having personal data. There is the ability to design a post submission form, set up your rules for direct messaging, a quick search, map markers, create your timeline, your wall options if it's going to have that. Okay, so lots of options here in addition to what you'd normally expect. So here you have a UI step, you have the title, you have a slogan, you have a category, you have a price range, you have details, you have description, you have images, logo, featured image gallery, repeater, contact information, work hours, location. Okay, some of these like title, description, featured image, those are default WordPress fields. But then they also have ones which are custom fields that they've customized for use in the types of sites that Voxel specializes in. Like here's time zone, event date, okay, phone number. These are the field types that Voxel has. So their work hours, you might want to have that for when they're open. There's location, recurring date, things like you'd normally expect, like text and text editor and post relationship and repeater. And then there are layout options, UI step, UI image, UI heading, and UI HTML. Okay, so extra things there on the fields, custom fields that are focused towards these kinds of membership directory sites. Then there's a tab for templates. And Toolset did this also. I kind of like it. They show you these are the templates that you can create or have for this custom post type, so you can kind of see which ones you've created, where you need to create them. So here's single post, preview card, that's kind of what would show up maybe on those walls. Something for the archive, for the front end post submission. Here you can go do a preview. This allows you to change the template for that function, whether it's the singular archive or whatever. And you put in the post ID here to make that change. Then here we're taken into Elementor. So I'm going to go into Elementor in just a minute. But before we do that, here are the places where you set up your front end filters. Here are the filters that are used in this demo: author, location, category, keywords, work hours. Here are available filters that you can add. So these aren't, like the necessarily the same kind of filters you see generally in something like WP Grid Builder. These are filters like location, is using a custom post type item there. Work hours are using the custom field. This is where you set up your filters. You can set the search order. This is where you do the indexing and check the index status. All right, now let's go into Elementor so we can see what they've added to Elementor. Okay, so you can see we're creating the single place template up here. And there's the header that they've created. Here's the single place template. Okay. Now, what Voxel has added is if you go down in the list, you'll see here are some widgets that have this VX designation on them. There's a search form, there's a nav bar option, there's a user bar option, timeline option, gallery, slider, actions, work hours, review status, create a post, for your front end form, pricing plans, a ring chart, a post feed, a quick search, a login register, product form, orders, Stripe account, map, print template, current plan, pop-up kit, timeline style kit, sales chart, template tabs, messages, countdown, configure plan, term feed, visits chart, chart summary, product price. Okay, so some of these things are for showing analytics. Things like, let's look at this pop-up kit. It tells you right here the purpose of this widget is so you can style these pop-up or form elements using Elementor. You set up in Elementor your global styles, and then you can apply them here to the UI elements. Okay, so that's the idea of those kits. Now, you'll notice in the widgets, Voxel adds a tab into the regular widgets here. There are visibility options here, and there are loop options here. Elementor Pro adds advanced looping options, and since Elementor Pro isn't required, you can use the Voxel loop on data where there's more than one record. If we go back, now I showed you the list here. For some reason, if you go down, they have another area here, like Voxel's own section, but these are the same widgets as we find up here. Okay, obviously we're not going to go through all of them, but I just want to show you like one or two more. For example, if we look at actions and we go and add an action, here you see there's a long list of actions that have been pre-configured in Voxel. And when you're designing your various layouts, your templates, these are ones that you can add a link and add to a cart, claim a post like in a directory. Often you'll import, like a list of all the local businesses or something like that. Promote a post, follow post author, and so on. Okay, so these are a whole huge list of possible actions. And you can create an action bar that you place kind of as like buttons in your UI. All right, and let's see if we get another one here, like say timeline. One of the things I wanted to show you here also is you see when you have this purple Voxel logo, you can access the Voxel tags, which are their version of dynamic data. So you have tags for posts, like if you wanted to add the post title, that's what that would look like. So you have all these post options. But you also have review, timeline post, wall post, right? So you can access the custom post type data here also. Then there are dynamic data options for author, right? As well as these extra items, and for user, and these extra items, and for site. Okay, so Voxel uses their dynamic data options instead of, like, the normal Elementor ones that are available with Elementor Pro. You go to the database icon. With Voxel, you would go to the Voxel icon. All right, I'm not going to save this. We'll just exit out. So that's custom post type, templates, and front end filter type features there. Design, this is the theme builder. It's the same kind of things that we access via templates, but they're here under design. This is where you set up your products. You can view your orders. We looked at timeline, membership. Like, here are the plans that were set up when it was imported. You give it a name, the roles, post submissions, pricing. All right. There's an entire role editor here where you can create roles and add the capabilities to them. You can view the customers, the buyers. Here's the custom post types that were set up for places and for events, and the user profiles and collections. Obviously, there's a great deal here, but I think we have enough for an overview. So now let's move on to the discussion portion of the video. So we've covered a lot of ground in the video. Now let's try to bring some order to it. I see 4 areas, 4 groupings of features in Voxel. The first is e-commerce. There's product creation and management, sales pages, the ability to set up payment gateways and accept payments, and customer dashboard features. The second group of features is the ability to create custom post types and custom fields and taxonomies, to create maps and front-end filters, and to use Voxel's dynamic tags in the templates. The third feature area is related to membership. There's messaging, actions, ability to create membership packages, timeline feeds with lots of interactions, user analytics, a role editor, and user profiles. And finally, the fourth area is related to the template builder, using Elementor as the builder with a large collection of custom Voxel Elementor widgets. Again, the dynamic tags, the display conditions, and the Voxel loop builder. So 4 areas with lots of features in them. A little bit of pros and cons. So the first pro then is pretty obvious. With that large collection of features, you can potentially replace a large number of plugins. Second, in many ways, it's an all-inclusive package. And that means that everything is integrated together by one developer team. There are decent docs and videos and the starter sites which tie everything together. Having an e-commerce solution built in is a big plus. That's often a stumbling block or one of the harder hurdles for site builders. If we look at some of the potential cons, even though it has a lot of features, they may not be the best in class or the ones you want to use. For example, maybe you have your e-commerce set up already using SureCart, or maybe you already own a large number of WooCommerce add-ons that cover edge cases that you need to take care of. Also, another potential con is that there's less portability of your custom post type and custom field data because you're using custom fields that aren't supported by other plugins. It's a proprietary solution. Typically, simple fields like text and numbers and text area fields are easy to translate between solutions, but things like dates and images and maybe repeaters and relationships are not so easy. So that's something to keep in mind. Now, by leveraging Elementor, the Voxel team sidestepped a very large amount of work that's usually required when creating an all-in-one solution. And I wonder if that has some drawbacks. And when I was testing Voxel and going in and trying to edit or create templates, the Elementor handoff seemed like the least smooth part of Voxel. I wasn't always sure if I had the template rules set correctly. And then finally, there are a lot of moving parts, which means that the starter sites are a must. Without them, it would be difficult to see how to tie everything together. Finally, in the pros and cons area, not a con, but a caution. And that is, I have no idea about performance. Typically, when you have something like Buddy Boss or Buddy Press, where there are a lot of interactions and notifications, takes a large amount of server resources. So that's something to keep in mind. I think we'd want to see how it compares to other solutions. From everything I've seen, the people who are in the Voxel community are happy with Voxel. However, that community is small, and if you need help, you might not have the breadth of documentation and resources that you'd have if you're using products with a larger user base. So again, not a con, but something to keep in mind. Voxel seems very powerful and flexible, but also has feature focus on certain areas. So I suppose you could use Voxel to create a simple brochure site, for example, or other sites outside of its kind of specialization areas, but maybe it would be overkill and not a good match. Its strengths seem to be in the areas of membership, directories, and bookings. It has a lot of features and a lot of synergy in those areas. And in fact, talking about those types of areas, I was surprised they didn't have support for courses. That seems to be a logical next extension. Voxel's reliance on Elementor means it would be more attractive to Elementor fans. While I don't see it as being the right solution for everything, it does look worthy of consideration if you're building a site that leverages its strengths. That's my first look at Voxel, talking about the features that it brings to the table for site builders. I hope you found the video interesting and useful. If you did, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel. Thank you for watching.